Yes, guys, week 5 fantasy football is here. A lot of news is going on, a lot of backfield shakeups and things like that. We're going to discuss all of it and then get into the rankings, the weekly rankings for every single position. Must-start studs, the players I like more than consensus, maybe some I like less. It's all happening right now. Before we get into rankings, I want to really quickly touch on the Buccaneers backfield as well as the Cardinals backfield. A lot of news going on here. So let's begin with Irving. Now, they have not put Irving on IR. It's very unlikely he plays in week 5. So, of course, the options become Tucker, Rachaad White, okay, and Sean Tucker. Now, Tucker's cheaper. Rachaad White, probably not available, probably a trade target, right? If you really need to start. I think ESPN has him projected for like over 13 points. I don't know if that's going to happen, okay? But I'm not, how do I put this? I'm not like breaking the bank for either of these guys, going super hard after either of them. And it's really just because of the schedule. I think Irving is going to be out 2 or 3 weeks. He'll probably miss 2 weeks. I mean, crutches right now, again, not a doctor, whatever, but normally, like we saw Trey Benson go on IR today, right? So if it's following kind of the same timeline and Irving didn't go on IR, and this is just my logic, then he's probably going to miss 3 games or 2 games, kind of like the Mike Evans situation where they're like, okay, he's going to be out multiple weeks, but it's not IR. So we can kind of conclude, right, that he's going to be out 2 or 3 weeks because if he was on IR, he'd be out 4, all right? Anyway, looking at the matchup, Seattle, I mean, we saw what they did to Trey Benson last week. It's one of the best defenses in the league, especially against running backs. The defense is very strong, especially in Seattle, okay? I don't love the matchup. And then San Fran. Obviously, ETN had a nice game. San Fran's kind of mid-pack, but again, kind of a tough defense, like not my favorite matchup for running backs. Tucker was a cheap ad. I really like Tucker on the bench. I don't want to start Tucker this week. If you want to start Rachaad White, go for it. I think he'll get enough work in the receiving game where he's relevant. 5 targets last week. So I think he'll get work in the receiving game. Like I said, be relevant, probably hits 10 carries. I think he's the first running back to get the work. See how it goes. Best case for Tucker is a 50-50 split. Honestly, if it's 50-50, okay, he's like 1 or 2 carries maybe behind White. In week 6, he could be a start against that middle-of-the-road San Fran defense if you really need him with the bye weeks. I know there's a good amount of bye weeks coming. So, yeah, Tucker to the bench. White can be started. I'm not, like, overly hype about either of them. That was a long time on this backfield. We'll move it along. And the first guy I'm going to show on the screen is James Conner. So, let's just do this from the beginning. James Conner goes down. As you can see, he was the primary rusher for the team. 12 attempts, 11 attempts. Trey Benson takes his role, comes in and takes his role, had 8 attempts before getting injured, and then we kind of saw DeMercado take the Benson role, which was these targets here in weeks 2 and 3, where DeMercado obviously only had 2 targets, but he's on the field for those third downs. Like third down would come, Benson out of the game, DeMercado in. Benson actually had 5 targets because Kyler was checking it down a lot. But so Benson took the Conner role. Now that Benson's out, who takes the Benson role and who takes the DeMercado role, right? So it's kind of like this pyramid scheme of fantasy football roles. So I don't know. The answer is I don't know. And let's just talk through the possibilities. Both Michael Carter and DeMercado need to be added. I actually would rather start both of these guys, one of these / both of these over Tucker. If I'm going to order them this week, Rachaad White is the best start. Carter and DeMercado are on the same level of startability. They can be started. And then Tucker, I don't want to start. So just to say that again, Rachaad White first this week in terms of starting. Carter and DeMercado, same level, like sure. And then Tucker, I don't want to start unless we get news. Again, I'm recording this late on Wednesday night, so if we get news, hey, Tucker's going to be the lead back, whatever. Obviously, guys, that changes things. And quick second here, for those of you who pointed out that I said Trey Benson was a trade target in our very popular video this week. My apologies, guys. I didn't know he was going on IR. He had 0 injury designation, okay? And I know you guys in the comments commenting that. I know you know that. So, anyway. We're seeing, oh man, like we've seen Carter come in. We look at last year, DeMercado was out in these games, but over 10 fantasy points in both games. He had 13 plus rush attempts, over 5.3 yards per carry against the Rams. Then week 18, only 2.5 yards per carry, but got in the end zone, 17 touches. Drew Petzeg actually referenced that game as when he liked Carter. So who gets the first touch here? I kind of think it's Carter, but then I think it's really close to 50-50. I don't think DeMercado is just going to be third downs. I think he works in. And obviously you have Bam Knight kind of factoring into the equation. Gannon said they're going to use all three guys. I don't love any of them, but the matchup versus Tennessee this week lets you play DeMercado and Carter if you really have to. I'd like to put them both on the bench, see what happens, but if you really have to, especially in PPR leagues, DeMercado can go in half. I like Carter. You can definitely flex these guys. I think they're going to be winning a lot. By a lot, I should say. You can definitely flex them. Those are my thoughts. Okay, and I like Benson for 3-1, 4-0 teams as a trade target. I think he's going to come back. They said he's going to be back in 4 weeks, so it's probably a week 10 scenario with their bye. Of course, he gets at Seattle again. I feel like it's the only team he plays. Whatever. Okay, so that is the vibes on those two backfields. That was 6 minutes on those backfields. So allow us to move on here, guys, to the weekly rankings for this week. We're going to begin with wide receiver. And hold on, let me just get my players in order here. Okay, we're beginning with wide receiver. Coming in at 32 to 25. These are high-end wide receiver threes, guys that I would be fine flexing. Troy Franklin, Khalil Shakir, Jordan Addison, Jacoby Myers, Marvin Harrison. Brian Thomas Jr., I'm still fine with him in the flex. Wan'Dale Robinson. Malik Neighbors is out. I'm cool with him, especially in PPR. 30% targets per route run once Neighbors went down. Hopefully he gets the deep targets. If he does, he's going to be in the top 20. And then Ladd McConkey at 25. I don't really want to start him, but great matchup. He can be flexed. With the bye weeks, these guys can be in the lineup. Troy Franklin, I mentioned him at 32, tied for the team lead in targets. It could be worse with these guys, okay? By the way, top 300 rankings every single week in the Discord. Join down below. No Expert FF Discord. Join up. You can ask me literally any question, by the way, that you want. We get into the top 24 here. And obviously Puka, Amon-Ra St. Brown, JSN, Justin Jefferson. That's kind of like the elite tier. In that next tier, I'm not even going to discuss those guys. Nothing to say. In the next tier, Nico Collins, Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson. Going to make this a little bigger for you guys so you can see. Hold on. Word. There we go. In the next tier, number 5, Nico Collins, Devontae Adams. Garrett Wilson comes in at 7. It's a great matchup. I just struggle to move him up just because it's so inconsistent with Fields, honestly. We saw what we saw in week 2. We saw what we saw last week. I don't know. Pickens at 8. Jamar Chase all the way down at 9. Quentin Johnston at 10. He is a wide receiver 1 right now. Xavier Worthy's up at 11, led the team in rushing and receiving last week. I'm going to put the respect on his name he deserves. He's a wide receiver 1 this week. Absolutely. On Monday night. Cortland Sutton slides right in at 12. Then we go into our high-end wide receiver 2s. Okay, those are our wide receiver 1s. Emeka Egbuka, Teteroa McMillan, and Chris Olave at 15. I do have Keenan Allen at 16, Zay Flowers at 17. Even with Cooper Rush, I think they might do some kind of designed short, close to line of scrimmage plays for him in PPR. I like him. Michael Pittman's balling out, currently a top 12 wide receiver. He stays. Deebo Samuel not practicing. Let's monitor that. But if he goes, great start. A.J. Brown at 20. I just can't move him up. Honestly, can't move him up. Jalen Waddle without Tyreek Hill, 21. Chris Godwin at 22 after 10 targets in the debut. Marvin Harrison firmly into that wide receiver 2 range. And then Brian Thomas at 24. So we have a bit of a typo here. I'm sure you guys noticed that, but this is the top 24. This is the most updated version here of the top 24. So I guess I moved in my edits. I moved up Marvin and Brian a little bit this week. So yes, a bit of a mistake there on my end. My apologies. Take this top 24 as what you'll be working with. And if you want the fully updated rankings, guys, in the Discord, come and get them. Okay. Our must-start stud of the week. Before that, the best matchups this week: Garrett Wilson versus Dallas, Chris Olave versus New Orleans, Michael Pittman versus Vegas, Myers and Tucker versus the Colts. Okay, or at the Colts. Those are the best matchups. The worst matchups: Jerry Jeudy versus Minnesota, Ibuka and Godwin at Seattle, Jalen Waddle at Carolina, Samuel and McLaurin at the Chargers. The must-start stud of the week, okay, without any further ado, is Chris Olave. The Giants are allowing, hold on, I'll just say this. The Giants are allowing the second most fantasy points to wide receivers this year. Olave, according to RotoViz, we look at the passing matchup rater. They have RotoViz is the best in the business at this type of advanced metric stuff. Shout out RotoViz always. Devon Vele on the Saints as the best matchup. Josh Downs, Colts, second best, and then Chris Olave right there next to Rashid Shaheed. Honorable mention Wandale. These guys are looking pretty good. In terms of matchup rating for this week. Don't take my word for it. Take RotoViz, take the expert's word for it. He is averaging 10 plus targets per game, only saw 6 last week. I imagine it goes right back up to approaching 10 targets this week versus the Giants and probably gets in the end zone, to be honest. With all this volume, he's probably going to get in again. Now, let's move into QB. The best matchups: Fields versus Dallas, Bryce Young versus Miami. Bryce Young, by the way, trade for candidate and sleeper. CJ Stroud at Baltimore, Jackson Dart at New Orleans. The worst matchups here, the hardest matchups. We have Jalen Hurts versus Denver. We have Cooper Rush versus Houston. Dylan Gabriel versus Minnesota. Matthew Stafford versus San Fran. Now you're probably saying, who's starting Rush? Who's starting Gabriel? You'd be surprised in these super flex leagues. I know some of you know what I'm talking about. The top 24 QBs. We'll start at the top. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be your tier 1. Not much to say. Moving right along. Justin Herbert, Justin Fields. Double Justin there. Justin Fields at 5. Jaden Daniels at 6. He's going to be ready to go. Drake May, back-to-back games with 20 points. He is number 7, and that's a bit of a tier break there. Those high-end QB1s, not quite the elite top 3, but very high-end. Then we get into Jared Goff at 8. Hard to rank him lower versus Cincinnati. Kyler Murray 9. Dak Prescott 10 after just dropping 40 points on the Packers. Baker Mayfield at 11 and Bo Nix at 12. Even though he's at Philly, I still like him. That's a tier break there for the top 12. We get into the high-end QB2s. Daniel Jones, Matthew Stafford, Jackson Dart, Geno Smith. Then we break it. We break it again. I love to do these intermediate tiers. We have Bryce Young. Like I said, trade for candidate. When Jalen Coker comes back, it's going to open a lot of things up. We're 1 week removed from that, but a great matchup versus Miami. In the same game, Tua versus Carolina, even with no Hill. Fine, middle-of-the-road QB2. Trevor Lawrence at 19. I'm almost tempted to move him down. CJ Stroud 20. Great matchup. I literally can't put him higher than 20. Then Sam Darnold, Spencer Rattler, Jake Brown, and Carson Wentz. We don't really want to start these guys. The QB must-start stud of the week is Jackson Dart. If we look at his rushing last week, 10 attempts, 54 yards, and a touchdown, they are going to use him like that. They really are. They're using Scatterbo as like a fullback, on those plays, which is pretty insane. 11 plus fantasy points in the ground last week, as I mentioned, got in the end zone. The Saints are allowing over 20 points per game to opposing QBs, so this could be a surprise shootout. The bad defenses versus relatively capable offenses. It's interesting, guys. It's very interesting. Now, I'm not going to say both teams are going to go drop 40 points, but could it be 28 to 30 in that game? Yeah, I think it could be a surprise. I really, really do. Moving along now to the tight ends, kind of more of a rapid-fire fashion with QB and tight end, so excuse me, but the best matchups, K-Dot and at Seattle. Some of these guys are kind of irrelevant, but they are what they are, maybe for DFS. Jatavian Sanders versus Miami, second time I did that. Aronde Gadsden versus Washington, Darren Waller at Carolina. The worst tight end matchups, the hardest ones, Evan Ingram at Philly, Brenton Strange versus KC, Tyler Warren versus Las Vegas, and Dallas Goedert versus Denver. Getting into the top 24 tight ends, I mean, really once we get out like side of the top 16, 15, it's kind of pick and choose. Maybe we use some of that schedule info. All this is on Twitter, so make sure you're following. But number 1, I do have Trey McBride, and 2, Bowers. Now that is a change. Obviously, I'm a big Bowers guy, but until this brace comes off, McBride's going to be number 1. Warren and Ferguson at 3 and 4, those are the tier 1 guys. Hunter Henry, I do have him as a trade away candidate, but 5th overall this week, of course, it's tough to go away from him, honestly, because it's such a thin position. Juwan Johnson at 6, he's injured right now. Monitor that, missed practice Wednesday. Hopefully he's good to go in that potential shootout with the Giants, right? And we're going to watch this video next week, and it's going to be a 13-10 game. But yeah, anyway. Dalton Kincaid at 7. Again, another tradeaway candidate, kind of similar to Hunter Henry. Harold Fannin at 8. We have Travis Kelce at 9, Sam Laporta at 10. Laporta is really moving down. If you have Laporta right now, you can start him this week in the matchup, but I'm kind of looking to move away from Laporta. Trade away, things like that for a guy like Fannin, for example. I think that's a move you can definitely make. Dallas Goedert at 11, also injured. Monitor that. David Njoku has just been overtaken by Fannin, but he remains, number 12. I don't know what Gabriel's going to do, so we need to see. I'm not trying to start Njoku, but yeah. TJ Hawkinson, 13, Evan Ingram, 14. Those guys are kind of like in the same category of you can be doing so much more, and why aren't you? Brenton Strange, 15, Darren Waller, 16. He is definitely streamable. Dalton Schultz, 17. Theo Johnson scored a touchdown last week, I believe, from Jackson Dart. 19. Jake Tongs with Mac Jones in. Mac Jones kind of likes him as a target, kind of interesting. Zach Ertz against Zach Ertz, Mark Andrews, Chigakonko at 22, Mason Taylor 23, Oronde Gadsden 24. Now the tight end must-start stud, guys, is Harold Fannin, none other than Harold Fannin. We've loved him this year, and he just hasn't delivered in the fantasy point department. His best game was week 1, 13.6 points, then 9.8, against Baltimore, also a nice little output there. But then the last 2 weeks, it's been bad, 5.5 and 4.5, but 5+ targets in 3 of 4 games. 6 targets last week, and the coaching staff has came out and said they want to move towards the youth on this offense. So Fannin, Bond, Judkins, they've all been called out as they're going to see more looks, which is great. Cedric Tillman is out. That frees up like 8 targets per game. Obviously, a good amount of those are going to go to Bond and have been going to Bond. But Harold Fannin has actually been a bigger part of the offense lately. Season high, 85% of snaps. Last week, we look at Njoku, and I'm sure it's gone down. It has not gone down. Nice, 84%. But what I'm hearing is he's running more routes. He's more involved in the offense. Just because Njoku's aren't going down, I had a hunch they were. Just because they're not, doesn't really matter if he's running more routes, Fannin. So we shall see. Hopefully it comes to fruition here. I don't know, against Minnesota. But basically, guys, the idea with the must-start stud is you can put them in the lineup. For tight end positions, you can stream them. Now, obviously, we're talking like, who do we discuss up here for a wide receiver, right? Chris Olave. Okay, if Chris Olave is your wide receiver 4, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown and Garrett Wilson and Quentin Johnston. Sure, Chris Olave is not a, quote, must start if you can only start up to 3 wide receivers. You guys know what I'm saying. But if you're on the fence between Olave, Allen, Flowers, Pittman, that's kind of what I'm saying. So if you're on the fence for Fannin, you need a streamer. Do I go Fannin, Kelce, Fannin, Laporta? I'm going Fannin. That is the premise here of the must-start studs. Now, let us get into my favorite position, as you guys know, the running back position. Coming in at 36, Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco at 35 back-to-back, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt at 34. I don't really want to start these guys. 33, Ramondre Stevenson. 32, Amari DiMercado. 31, Kendre Miller. 30, Michael Carter. We talked about all those guys. I'm cool starting those latter guys. I don't really want to, but if you're in a pinch, go for it, okay? 29, Trevion Henderson. Now we start to get into the players that could be in your flex. Chase Brown, Tony Pollard at 27, 26, RJ Harvey off his best game of the season, and 25, Rashad White. This is assuming Bucky is out. High-end RB3, low-end RB2. Getting into the top 24. Jahmyr Gibbs, McCaffrey, Taylor, Cook. That is tier 1 this week. I have all those guys just a little, really as the elite group here, ahead of the next tier. Achane, Barkley, Hampton, Genty, and I'm putting Javonte Williams at RB9 in this tier of high-end RB1s. We move along. Obviously, Bucky is still on this graphic. I'm just leaving him here for now where he would be if he played, just so you can kind of get an idea. But yes, he was at 10. He's definitely not playing this week. But until he's, quote, ruled out, I'm just going to leave him on the graphic. So maybe just move these next guys up an inch, if you will, in the rankings. Breece Hall at 11, so technically 10. Derrick Henry at 12. Quinshon Judkins at 13. With the Bucky news, he is an RB1. Quinshon Judkins is dominating. He has the highest percent of team RB rush percentages, or Team RB rush opportunities, I should say, the highest percent of those opportunities. He has like 85% of the team's rushes to Judkins. It's the most among running backs. So he is an absolute workhorse. Kyron Williams, 14. Woody Marks, 15. Travis Etienne, 16. Cam Scadaboo, 17. Chuba Hubbard at 18. Alvin Kamara at 19. He's dropping in the rankings. David Montgomery at 20. I'd be pretty surprised if he doesn't score a touchdown this week after not scoring last week. There's some narrative stuff going on with David Montgomery where, there's some family members attending the game, things like that. I'm not going to ignore that stuff. So I'd be pretty surprised if Campbell doesn't say, hey, get in the end zone for him, something like that. You can look more into that online if you want. Kenneth Walker at 21. J.K. Dobbins, 22. Jordan Mason, 23. Zach Charbonnet at 24. As far as the best matchups in the must-start stud, the best matchups this week, Gibbs and Montgomery at Cincinnati, Carter and DeMercado versus Tennessee. It's part of the reason I'm putting them in the lineup if I can. If there's an opportunity, I'm not hesitating to. Kamara and Miller versus the Giants. Marks at Baltimore. We'll pull up Woody Marks real quick over here on Sleeper. Just take a quick look in a second. As far as the worst matchups, we have McCaffrey at the Rams, but basically every 49er's out of the game, so nothing to worry about besides injury, honestly. Bill Krosky-Merritt at the Chargers, bad matchup. Mason versus Cleveland, bad matchup. And Taylor versus the Raiders, bad matchup. Matters more for some than others, the matchups, for sure. In terms of the must-start stud, you already know. Woody Marks at Baltimore. Baltimore is allowing the most fantasy points to opposing running backs. They rank 32nd in the league against opposing running backs for fantasy. He is accounted for 35%, 35% of team opportunities in week 4. I was thinking rushing opportunities from the Judkins conversation. Just to be clear, Judkins, 85% of rushing opportunities. Marks, 35% of team opportunities, including passes, things like that. That is 13th most for Marks among all running backs. So, for example, Marion Hampton, Kyron Williams, Travis Etienne, Bucky Irving, these players do not have as high percent of team opportunities as Woody Marks had in week 4. Pretty insane. And again, all credit, guys, to this website right here, RotoViz. Get the subscription. This is literally not an ad. They don't even know that I plugged them this hard. We've been in contact. I tell them I love the product, all that, but you guys got to get it. All right. And that's going to do it, guys, for the video today. So join the Discord down below. Ask me anything. My top 300 rankings weekly are in there. Anything you need, waivers, trades, lineup optimization, start, sit, you can ask me directly. I answer every single question for my subs. Join down below the No Expert Fantasy Football Discord. Good luck this week, guys. Apologies about that little typo here with the wide receiver rankings. I will post to correct this. And what I'm referring to is we mentioned, I believe, Marvin and Brian twice. I don't know. I might have just had a little typo here. I will fix it. Like I said, go on Twitter, use this photo for your top 24. This is where I have them. All right, guys, peace.